Okay. Oh, and I see Destiny is here. That's so great. Welcome, everyone. And this is the part where I have to turn off my transcription part because if I talk and I see what I'm saying at the same time, then I get confused. So anyway, here we are. We'll get started. We are at Avenues. Oh, Courtney's here. Nice to see you, Courtney. I was mentioning that you might be showing up. I just turned the recording on, so I'm just going to say that here we are at the School of Art and Design, and we're doing Avenues, which is alumni artist talks with a focus tonight on the sculpture and expanded practice BFA. So we have awesome people here, um, uh, three wonderful guests, as well as a bunch of people joining into the evening. And I'm just going to get started right away with I'm going to read some short bios about the people that are visiting with us tonight. So we have Christen Contario. Welcome. Christen received her BFA in Sculpture and Expanded Practice from Ohio University in 2013. She earned an MA in Sculpture and Painting from Eastern Illinois University in 2014, and her Permaculture Design Certificate from Ecoversity in 2021. She has worked with Sherwin-Williams and ran her own company, restoring historic buildings and renovating homes. She works as an exhibiting artist and permaculture designer and is based in Cincinnati, Ohio. So exciting. And we have Jasen Bernthisel with us. Jasen's process of establishing community orchards and gardens is an extension of the socially driven practice he became immersed in during his education in the Sculpture plus Expanded Practice BFA program at Ohio University. Prior to his transition into urban agriculture, Jasen worked for the Carnegie Museum of Art and the Pittsburgh Cultural Trust as a preparator, exhibitions designer, and technician. He received his BFA in Sculpture and Expanded Practice from OU in 2014. Oh, wow, Brooks is here too. How awesome. And on screen and everything. Okay, and so we also have Michael France with us. Michael received his BFA in Sculpture plus Expanded Practice from OU in 2017. He has worked as a studio technician at Arrowmont School of Arts and Crafts in Tennessee. Maintaining traditional craft studios broadened his knowledge of materials, techniques, and tools. And in 2020, Michael and three collaborators founded Whistle Pig Farm, a collective studio operating out of a converted barn on their shared farm in East Tennessee. Welcome to all three of you. So glad that you're here. Um, so yeah, I have to say right away, I just think it's totally fascinating that, we have really three random alumni here, of course, all from sculpture. And then what I really noticed as I received your bios and learned a little bit more about you is all of this through line about working with gardening and farming and permaculture. And I just think that's a really fascinating link. That is, something that really ties the three of you together just right off the bat. So that's just fascinating and really exciting. Um, but let's dig in to some questions here. And I guess they're kind of sort of general, somewhat maybe repetitive. But we could dig down into some of these. And so let's just say this one. Tell us about some things you learned at OU and at the School of Art and Design that contributed to your success. And I'll just have any one of you sort of start in on that. Something that you learned that has, you've carried forward and has helped you in the world? You want to
I
start with
think,
that, Christen?
sure. I think it might be just the community that we had with our class, but networking and maintaining contact and open communication through, I mean, every class, but also outside of class, just building that network and those connections um, was really good practice, but also allowed us to keep in touch outside of college. And I think that's something that has made me super or as successful as I am. Um, just making those connections, keeping the network growing, and really just being open to all opportunities.
Yeah, that's really excellent. Thank you. And what do you want to say about that, Jasen?
Yeah, I mean, I would completely echo exactly everything Kristen was saying. I mean, to me, learning to become more deeply a member of various communities, and from those communities, learning a lot about being and participating in politics and just becoming a more active participant in the world in general, I think was just like a big driving force of what felt successful to me, as an outcome of, going through any university program. And then, yeah, just again, like Kristen was saying, like all the deep connections with friends that I made in the time there who are, many of which we're still working toward building a life in common together. I think that that's, a benefit of any, kind of situation that one finds around the process of being in like university or just that context. But yeah, I mean, I guess it's just maybe a long-winded way of just saying exactly what Kristen was. It's just like, yeah, the friends I made along the way and all of those connections are just so vitally important.
Right. What do you want to add to that, Michael?
Yeah, I mean, in addition to yeah, like the seeing the value of community, I'd say something that really helped me out was the ability to kind of. I guess I've always been like a mechanical person, and the tech at the time, Tanner Young, um, really helped me lean into that and helped me gave me helped teach me how to maintain the equipment. And like having that experience is what I was able to immediately start like finding work within the field. Like being a studio technician at Aramont was, my whole application was that I, yeah, had this experience at OU, and that's why I was capable of, yeah, jumping into that.
Oh, that's really awesome. It's great for you to mention Tanner. Yeah, I mean, we miss Tanner and Daisy too.
Yeah,
Um, and it's so interesting that you brought up Tanner too, because Michael, you're working with tools and you have this sort of fascination, I think, with like the aesthetics of tools and different types of ways that we use traditional or maybe, new types of tools. I mean, the way you talked about it in your bio, I was thinking really about sort of like farm tools or like, not tools in the sense of like AI or intense digital media, but more like these hands-on types of things. And I think about Tanner's artwork and the way that it is sort of like these interesting contraptions that include material, these sort of materials like wood and rusted metal or things like this, and so that it's kind of a nice association when you bring him up. Um, so I wonder if you guys uh, Jasen and Kristen, did you also work with Tanner when he was here as the woodshop tech?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it's nice to be following the work that he's doing and seeing all the beautiful installations that he's coming up with.
Yeah, I've run into working at Aramont. Like Tanner's he got work into one of the, like, there's a show that Kelsey curated. That was, yeah, like young, like artists under, um, it was like 35 or something like that. I can't remember exactly the age cutoff of the show, but he had. So I've run into Tanner a couple of times at Aramont. He did a week residency that Aramont hosts every year, and it's been fun to have the chance to like reconnect with him and just sit and chit chat and see, like, catch up on each other, see how we're doing.
Oh, that's so awesome. I'm so glad to see Brooks because I haven't seen you, Brooks, for some months. And so, I just want to invite anyone here to, if you guys have any questions, also if any of our guests, we have a pretty good crowd with like about 19 people in the room. If any of our guests want to, ask a question, you could put that in the chat. I'll try to catch that. Or just speak up and ask something in person if you'd like. And so just letting you guys know there. And there's Kelsey. How are you doing, Kelsey? It was so enjoyable to have you as one of our presenters. I think that was a year ago or a year and a half. I'm not really sure because time seems to be very slippery these days. But yeah, so we've got this nice group of alumni and current students all hanging out here tonight. So yeah, let me move on to another question, sort of a basic question about the sculpture and expanded practice. What advice would you give to someone wishing to pursue this degree or this concentration? So whoever wants, you want to start us off again with that, Christen?
I'm sorry, I was reading the chat. Can you ask that question again?
Oh, look at this. So, Christen, can you talk a bit about your trajectory into owning your own business? Let's go there for now, since Holly asked this question in the chat, and we could come back to that other general question. But yeah, talk a little bit about that, getting your own business started, and what is that like?
So my business started as really just no inventory, just like my art supplies. I was, doing renovating homes and doing custom things for people, like different stain matches and things like that. I really didn't have to purchase anything besides tools, which I already had a lot of through college. But that was how I made my business immediately start being profitable, is figuring out a way to not have to purchase much of anything. I love cooking, but I didn't want to do food because that goes to waste, and there's all these other certifications and health issues. So I just kind of combined all my different interests and tried to figure out something that was very affordable to start up, but also manage and scale. I am navigating something a little bit different now. So previously my business was 1099. It was a private contractor kind of deal, but also I bought and sold houses. So that was kind of its own thing. The 1099 thing is great because it's, just you owning your own, pretty much LLC. Depending on which state you're in, I've lived all around the country, so I've done it in a few different states, but Ohio is a great state to start business. And if anyone has any questions about specifically Ohio-based contracting or 1099 formatted or taxed businesses, feel free to email me, or I'll put my phone number in the chat if you want. But that's something very specific, and I'm actually navigating into trying to do a nonprofit because I'm buying my family farm and starting a permaculture pilot farm there. It's in between Cincinnati and OU. It's Hillsboro area, but really the main thing that I can speak to in any owning your own business type venture is find a mentor, network, and ask a million questions. Don't rely online because a lot of those forums and everything can be a little convoluted. And like I mentioned earlier, it depends on what state you're in. A lot of loopholes. Find a good accountant, but mostly really a mentor. It's not like anything else. We as artists just kind of navigate things organically and creatively, and that's not how a business works. So, or at least on some level, you have to be really good at it to know all these little loopholes and different things that you can and can't do. So, two major things: accountant and a mentor, doing the type of business that you want. And I'll throw my number here real quick.
Oh, that's really, really wonderful, really clear, smart advice. Thank you for that.
No problem.
And, that's perfect. So yeah, thank you for that question, Holly. Let's go back to my question about, just this thing in general of like, what advice would you give to someone wishing to pursue this degree or this concentration of sculpture plus expanded practice?
Me again? Or...
Sure, Kristen, why don't you continue with that and with an answer for that?
Enjoy every second. Don't sleep. Just go have fun. Go learn everything you can, and ask every question you can possibly think of to your teachers, your instructors, your friends. Don't waste 1 second because you are paying for this, and this will not last forever. The real world is not as bountiful in resources, so use them while you have them.
Oh yeah, wow. I mean, that really, I have to say, with these Avenues talks, this is a recurring line of advice. This thing about how, once you leave this, it really it's a different world. And so, yeah, also what you were all saying very early in this meeting, this idea about community and, building community here in the program, being with your cohort and, really getting involved with your critique situation and then also, keeping in touch with those people when, as you leave this situation, and then, of course, growing that network. So that's really something that keeps coming up. So thank you for that. What do you want to say about this, Michael? This idea of, what advice would you give to someone wanting to go into sculpture plus expanded practice?
Yeah, I mean, I guess in addition to what Kristen said, I would say explore and listen to the little voice in your head that says when you really like doing something. I feel like whenever I was in the program, we always felt like the sculpture kids were kind of like the land of misfit toys. Like, we're the ones that just don't fit in any of the other programs. So we have kind of this endless selection of media that you can pick from, and it's easy I found myself getting lost in amateurhood and really just always picking up different things and never letting myself dive in. And over the past couple of years, I've been trying to like discipline myself a little more and like get myself to dive into the things that I do really enjoy. But yeah, like those possibilities are really beautiful, and because there is such a wide range of paths you can go down. But yeah, I mean, maybe yeah, yeah, just try things and listen to when it really feels when something feels right, I guess.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I like what you said there, Michael. Did you say amateurhood?
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel that. Yeah, I guess in turn, like to expand on that, it's like to me going into the sculpture studio and just seeing all of the tools that were available and wanting to like touch them all and like know what they did to a degree, but not necessarily like encumber myself by mastering them was like really exciting. Um, I mean, I got to give it to Brooks and Courtney because I think that my first sculpture class was with y'all, and just the attention to like fostering experimentation and like every stretch that you could look at that as like a possibility, I think is what just like completely hooked me. So I would say that if you know, if you have like a proclivity towards that kind of line of maneuvering, like that you know that's you're definitely someone who should be pursuing if you're like thinking about where do I fall into specifically BFA programs or whatever that it's a I feel like it's a community, a group, and a practice that can really foster that in folks. um I would say beyond that, and maybe this is pretty standard thing to say in these type of talks, but like taking risks, like whether that's aesthetic risks or however that could be interpreted. I really advocate for that. Getting outside of town is really helpful. Um, I feel like one of the most compelling things that, and this goes back to the community building and the community making aspects of what I learned from OU is I think one of the most crucial things was just like having communal dinners with friends and colleagues goes like a really long way towards just opening up different possibilities for living. And I guess that's maybe getting outside of the question of like, what advice you would give to someone pursuing, a program specifically. But yeah, I feel really deeply about all those things.
Oh yeah, that's so awesome. And I think that's so true, right? Like sharing meals. And also, you said this thing about getting out of town. I love that. Do you want to say a little more about that? Like when you were here as a student, where did you go? Like when you needed to just get away, or you wanted to explore some other place or town or city or
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I didn't have access to a whole lot of resources to like get out of town proper, but I was fortunate enough to, in the areas around Athens that I lived, meet a lot of folks who, had lived in town for decade plus. And so I made a lot of friends with them. So just being able to explore places, for instance, a friend Adrian of mine who grew up in Athens County would just take me all over on various whims. So I think that's part of it too is maybe getting outside of town, but getting outside of the university context and just I don't know, trying to incorporate yourself into the larger, I guess, group of folks who live around the area.
yeah, yeah. It's really interesting, Jason, because also I think about this whole situation like that you're in now in that neighborhood in Pittsburgh, and that there's a bunch of alumni that are, a bunch of us know those people. I'm just looking on the screen. I see Courtney Brooks, me, like we know some of your best peeps over there. There's a bunch of, studio artists from OU, BFA and MFA students. And that kind of, I see the way, you're part of that whole community of creative people and business owners. And so some of these people I'm thinking about, like Jeff Lovett and Marit Agard, and also there's also Haley Haley Ebersole is there, and Joey Behrens, and Haley's partner's name is
John Sanders as well. Yeah.
that's right, the awesome painter. Um, I'm really loving his work right now that I'm seeing on Instagram. So yeah, do you want to say a little bit more about that group of people, Jasen, and what that's like to be in this sort of community?
Yeah, I mean it's awesome. We all live within everyone you named. We live within like a 3-minute walk of one another. It goes beyond like the creative community, and it gets into like realms of like how do we support ourselves with like childcare and various other just like serious things of like how do we do life together in common. Um, but yeah, I mean, obviously that's one facet. There's a lot of just brilliant um, conversations that can happen about art making, obviously as well. I mean, Joey is just in the process of finishing the work with Blank Space and getting a collective press studio set up here, which is a really wonderful resource. Having the gallery space is really exciting, and it obviously brings more folks into the community around us. So yeah, it's just a really great way to see all of the possibilities of connections that we can, find together.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's like several times that I've been able to stop in at that area, and see you all. And I think one of the times I even saw Courtney there, and you guys had a party, and it was just so awesome to have that kind of background of, the OU experience and all of that. And then, that kind of does make me think about like with Michael and Kelsey and the way you guys are working with others to build something in a community. And do you want to say a little bit more about that, Michael? What are you guys doing down there?
Yeah, so I mean, so Kelsey and I both worked at Aramont School of Arts and Crafts after we left OU. We worked there for 3.5, 4 years, and um, we were working there when like COVID happened, and we once we got back to work like on campus, we were eating lunch outside, and we started to eat lunch with this guy that we worked with, that we hung out with at gallery openings, and the communal aspects of Aramont. We eat lunch together and just started to realize that we liked really liked his worldview and the way that he operated, and then getting to know his partner who was getting her MFA at University of Tennessee for printmaking. So we got to know them really well, eating lunch together, and we during conversation we realized that each couple had this dream of building this like weird DIY art space, like living on this homestead kind of thing and wanting to start like a residency program. And Kelsey and I actually came like the birth of this idea for us was at OU, hanging out at like Station 116 with
Uh,
Steven, and me, Kelsey, and Steven talked about like buying old churches or old funeral homes or whatever space we could just find to convert into like this communal studio space. And so yeah, we found another couple who just had the same exact idea, same dream, and we all just kind of felt like a gut feeling and jumped in together. And yeah, within like 6 months, we had purchased the farm and yeah, started building the garden and converting the old like horse barn into the studios as what I'm sitting right
and that's where you are now, inside of this studio space. That's awesome. How cool that you mentioned Station 116 and then Stephen Deffett and Dan Mannion, right?
now.
What's great is that a month from tonight, we're going to have Dan Mannion on one of these avenues talks. So I'll try to send you guys a link to that so that you could come check us out. Dan will be here along with Chris Monday and I'm forgetting who my third person is right at the moment. But yeah, that was a great space. Is that something, Christen, were you also around during that Station 116 time? And Jasen,
Sure.
yeah, okay. So
Where was it?
that was like 116 Lancaster Ave, and it was
Oh, yes,
inside
yeah.
of like a garage.
Yeah, I remember.
So exciting. And then COVID came along and then it all ended. But maybe something like that will kick up again. But yeah, that's really wonderful references. Oh, and this is great. In the chat, we've got Courtney put in what is that? Joey's space, Joey Beren's her space there in Pittsburgh, which I'm eager to explore.
The gallery and art residency, yeah.
Oh, that's so great.
And then Stephen
Really.
Deffitt's website.
Oh, great. Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. Let's see. I'm looking at our list of questions here. And you guys have given so much information. Okay, here's one. Because I'm thinking like we've got some current undergrads inside the room, and so we'll address some things toward some things that they can think about and dream about. But one thing is, does anybody want to talk about your experience with job searches or interviewing? I mean, it's kind of an interesting question in a way, because also you have all done so much sort of on your own. You kind of have created, especially like Kristen's talking about, creating her own business entirely. And, you've had some kind of unique pathways that are based in, I mean, I really admire the kind of confidence and sort of inventiveness that you guys have done it. Also Kelsey's here on the call, and so is doing this great stuff with making your own traveling uh uh tintype studio and all of that stuff, which really takes a lot to just kind of bring that into being on your own, right? So it wasn't so much getting interviewed and things like that. But what do you guys want to say about any of your experience with this advice about job searching or how to approach interviews? Anybody have anything to say about that?
I do.
Go for it.
I said it earlier tonight, and I'll say it again. The real world. If you go from high school straight into college, even if you have part-time jobs or whatever, and or you work full-time during the summer, nothing prepares you for entering the real world until you graduate or you just jump in. I had a very rude awakening. I went into Sherwin-Williams as a color consultant, and that's a male-dominated industry. And I grew thick skin, had to grow thick skin very quickly, dealing with contractors that are not the most savory of people all the time in terms of their attitude towards having a woman help them. So really, I tried to climb the corporate ladder and learn as much as I could about products and that industry and everything. And I had a very positive experience with that. However, trying to climb that corporate ladder and deal with people constantly just wanting to pick a fight about them being in the industry longer and not, being in sculpture was great because I experimented with everything. And that's what helped me thrive in that role. All these contractors had one product they wanted to use and they didn't experiment that much, and it was a struggle. So relating that to job interviews and opportunities, while I did interview well, which is having a college degree singularly does help. It puts you in a very good spot. But having self-confidence, I think that's the number one key, is just, yes, you have a degree. Yes, you spent 4 years busting your ass. Yes, you are worthy and deserve anything you put your mind to. You have to have that confidence. But ultimately, what led me to wanting to do something on my own is just not having that many people believe in me. So I knew I could do it, and I didn't need other people's validation at this point in life anymore. I was done. Like, and art school gave me that. It showed me that I could be a project manager. I could work with a deadline. I could experiment and still get all my stuff done and network and all. I could do it. So I got frustrated and fed up and just gave myself a project deadline. And interviews really aren't that scary. Don't let them intimidate you. It's just talking to someone. And if you believe in yourself, you'll be fine. Don't let the world scare you. Everyone talks that it's this big, mean thing that's going to chew you up and spit you out, but not if you can do that to it first.
Right. Right. And yeah, I really get that sense of, like, in this male-dominated space, trying to fight back against that. And also I'm curious, because you were saying that this color, what are you talking about, like sort of choosing colors and things like for interiors projects, or what are you saying about that?
The role that I started with Sherwin.
Yes.
So that was a part-time position that was going into people's homes, helping them pick out their colors. And then from there, after doing that for 3 months, I needed a real full-time job. So I went to assistant manager, traveled the country managing Sherwin stores, and then ended up being a sales rep managing 5 Lowe's stores that Sherwin has a partnership with that. So 5 Lowe's stores, teaching their paint product or their paint desk about different products and colors, managing 5 Lowe's stores in 2 cities, in Boise and Twin Falls. So like I said, I did try and climb the ladder, but it just didn't give me any purpose or satisfaction. But it gave me a bunch of knowledge that I can use moving forward. So, but yes,
Right.
it did start off as picking out people's colors.
Right. And a kind of expertise in color. And that's actually really fascinating to me. And what about you, Michael and Jason? What do you want to say about this sort of interview question? Like, any advice you have about how do you approach that, finding, job searches? How do you go about that? How do you find sort of the right kind of thing that will make you feel, you're aiming towards some kind of fulfillment, hopefully using the degree in some way. And then how do you bring that, this confidence from the experiences, as somebody who achieved a BFA. And also, Kristen said this thing about deadlines, which it's so great that we're dealing with that all the time as undergrads, of like, okay, this thing is done, it's due in 2 weeks, and it has to be really awesome, or it's due in a month. Yeah, so it's really great advice. But what do you guys want to add to that?
I really like what you said about project management skill sets, like being something that I didn't realize was like a really tangible thing I was taking away as like, what would feel at the time in art school as like this kind of corporately marketable skill. But now like I do, I utilize project management in my work so much. So yeah, I feel like the process of doing art in school like really trains you to be good at that. Um, and so yeah, I think that that's something to consider when you're thinking about like, what does a job application look like? And I'm going to try to be real brief about this because I'm pretty poor at interviews, get like super in my head about them going into them. So I don't know if I can speak like as to how to like ease anxiety around that. Um, but all I can just say is that one important thing, and I think that Kristen, what you were saying also touches on this, is just like being willing to course correct when, you have pursued a certain path to a degree and maybe you are feeling like this is not for me. Being willing to take like a big step elsewhere into another world is I think something that is really important to remember as like a possibility.
That's really awesome. Yeah, what do you want to say about that, Michael?
Yeah, I guess I was thinking specifically about like somebody coming out of the BFA like sculpture program. Like right after I graduated, I managed to hear through the grapevine that Stuart McDonald in Athens was hiring. It's like a guitar, like stringed instrument supply company through April Felipe's partner, Elliot, I believe. And he was working there. But yeah, I was able to get a job doing that, like working out in their wood shop, um, running a CNC machine, sanding things using a planner. Um, and then, yeah, when we moved to Tennessee and I was applying at Aeromont, what I really leaned into kind of like echoing back to like the forever amateur mindset I was in. I just kind of really leaned into the fact that like in the sculpture world, we deal with so many different media. Like we're able to juggle all of these disparate processes and kind of stitch them to each other. And like the studio teching like jobs, it's a lot of like being able to understand enough of each of these processes to know when the equipment is working correctly and know how to like structure the space to help things flow. Like you don't necessarily need to be a master to be a studio technician. You just need to have that willingness to like like learn a new thing. Like it's like, oh, this piece of equipment's broken down, I've never worked on this before, but I feel like a lot of sculpture kids could like watch a few YouTube videos and read a manual, and then you figure it out. You can change kiln elements, you can replace blades on a planer. It's not hard. And yeah, like like sculpture really helps you, like all of the different like the casting classes, and there's just so many different avenues that you're kind of pushed through that we're already trained to pivot so well and jump from medium to medium.
Yeah, that's so awesome. It's such a real that's so much the value. That is the mastery itself. The ability to solve these problems, in the physical realm, right? Because there's also like we're taking art history classes and things like that, to solve these other sort of theoretical or art historical, problems or issues. But it's very much a hands-on thing with you guys. And, that's coming from me, painting, BFA and MFA from OU. Um, and, I mean, I'm multidisciplinary as well, but uh, uh, I really get that from the sculpture and expanded practice, this thing of like, oh yeah, we'll try a little welding, we'll cast some things. All of those types of things don't really scare you. And I think that that is, a really great thing about the program and probably something that you all share. I always think there's this thing about sculptors are so cool. So yeah, there's that.
I think there's a certain level of confidence that's imparted. Like, I remember working with you, Kristen, and just seeing that, like the confidence to just maneuver around all these techniques was just like so deeply there with you. Michael, like taking on, a big collective project like that, just like having that. I don't know. I feel like there is definitely tangents from being around all of the energy that was in that community and in those buildings, and around sculpture. Yeah, exactly what you were saying, Mateo. I recognize it deeply in both of y'all.
And since you mentioned it, I want to add something to that too. Like, I just think so fondly of my whole sculpture class experience with Courtney, Brooks, Jeff, all the different professors, but really like I just had such a great experience with our grad student teachers, and specifically within sculpture, I loved that I knew when I went to sculpture class, 99% of the time, no one was going to tell me no. Like, no, you can't do that. No, we don't do it this way. It was always encouraged. I mean, that's what really resonated with me. Like painting or printmaking or anything else that was, somewhat needed to be process oriented. The casting is kind of like that a little bit, but there's just a free form to the process that is resonated through like the way we move through life. I guess the sculpture people are just, even if you're not a sculpture person and you go to sculpture class, it's just kind of like, yeah, what are we gonna do today?
Right.
Who knows?
Yeah, I really
But
love that.
I love that.
I also love this thing that I guess Jason was saying maybe about the land of the misfit toys, which is great because this idea like there's a lot of different processes and approaches or really types of artwork that you would make in that place. And then of course, with like Dwayne being very much also about, this thing that I always think about with Dwayne, and like if I could boil it down, because I was his student as well, as this thing about what is the action in the world, or what does the project do? Like, how does it move out into the world? I don't know if I'm expressing this in a really clear way, but I've thought about that, and I also this thing where I have a visual image of that. I don't know where this comes from, but it's almost this idea that you would make something. Well, I think like a message in a bottle, I guess is what it is, where you could make something and put it out into the ocean and see where it goes and if it's going to come back to you. Um, Actually, and that makes me think of this Laurie Anderson kind of thing that she said, and I don't know the exact quote, but this thing about the things that we lose, and then if they come back to us, they're totally changed. And so again, I guess I think about that in terms of Dwayne, or this idea of something going out over around the globe or something, and then coming back to us. Um, and another way that I think about that is something like Felix Gonzalez Torres artwork, and like the piles of candy or other things that amazing artist made, where people are taking, there's this pile of candy in the museum, and then people are taking it. And then, I have some of them like on my windowsill somewhere, so that it spreads out into different places. Thus, I digress quite a bit there, but those are just some of the associations that I have around some of that stuff. And so you guys mentioned, was there a class with Courtney and Brooks when they were both grad students in that program? And like Courtney was the instructor of record and Brooks was the TA or something?
I think that you were both grad students at the time co-teaching some courses. At least that's what I was mentioning.
Yeah, it was a stacked, I was teaching, well, yeah, it was a stacked 2 sculpture classes that were stacked, and it was casting and then like sculpture 2 or something. Yeah. Jason, I was like telling my husband who you all were just to remind him of your names and your face without seeing your faces or whatever. And I was like, remember Jason made the 70-pound cast bronze guitar that he electrocuted himself with.
Yep.
And he's like, oh yeah.
Oh boy.
Oh boy.
That was a great
You still have that?
No. When you calculate 70 pounds bronze, it gets kind of expensive. We melted that back down. I've got a part of it somewhere in the house on a shelf somewhere. But
Oh my
I think
gosh.
the process of moving that anywhere would have been not so much fun.
That's
I have
amazing.
something on my shelf that I made during that class, Courtney.
Yeah.
A little
Do you have it?
plaster. Yeah.
Oh, look.
I think we were in that class together, Christen,
Plaster
right?
hands.
Oh, awesome.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I think it was like just a general casting. Like we went from like paper casting to silicone and plastic and bronze and paper. Yeah, just sort of like the whole gambit. It wasn't just like bronze, but yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
it was great.
Very awesome. And then, right now, there's a BFA alum, Ray Perez, who is now an MFA candidate here. And I don't know if he's on the call or not, but Ray was, I think, last semester teaching a casting class. And
Nice.
I think people were enjoying that. Oh, awesome.
This
Amazing.
is yeah.
Stephanie.
Ray made this in the
Hi,
casting class
Steph.
we
Oh
took,
yeah,
the squirt
Oh,
gun.
Ray made the gun.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Is that
Awesome.
bronze?
Yes. Yeah. Yes, bronze squirt gun, the casting
Yeah.
class that Tanner taught.
Wow.
Amazing.
Got my bronze
Hey,
teapot
Holly's
downstairs.
on my call too.
I think I have brass knuckles that Jason made in that class, maybe.
Yes.
I have them too.
Yeah.
Very cool. No, that's so exciting to see this kind of synergy and this. Yeah, and then there's Stephanie coming into the meeting. Thank you so much for being here. And it's really exciting. And I guess my through line being this thing about, you all have mentioned these different educators and you talked about Tanner and somebody mentioned the amazing April Felipe, who is just a genius. And you know, so I guess that was also one of my questions. Is there anybody else, and we'll say Marilyn Poppelmeyer, who's not, she has retired, but that's another amazing person that some of us got to work with. But yeah, is there anybody also like, in or out of sculpture that any other educator or experience that you had that you want to talk about, that's something that kind of comes back to you? I guess we don't have many minutes left, but that's something I just wanted to kind of throw out there.
Yeah, I can be really brief. I want to mention Jeff Carr at the Kennedy Museum. I know that I think Michael, you worked with him. Kelsey, maybe you as well. Christen, I don't know if did you work with Jeff? Yeah, I was a assistant preparator there and learned a lot from him, and just had a really fantastic time being in that building, working with those artworks, and just learning from Jeff.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I would definitely echo like the value of that experience. Like getting to work in yeah, I mean, the Kennedy has amazing collections, and it's just it was an amazing institution. And then Jeff just being the amazing like teacher and mentor that he was while he was working at the Kennedy. And yeah, Kelsey, Steven, and I roamed the basement, and yeah, it really gave us a chance to bond with each other, and you get to make money still in like the arts while you're a student, which is a rare opportunity.
I think, well, my thesis was actually with John Sabral somehow. I'm not sure how my classes got messed up a little bit, I think, but John Sabral is fantastic, and I think he's also worth mentioning just because the theme of tonight, everyone's got plants or has some sort of botanic background, but he's doing some amazing work right now with the environment as well. So definitely an outside the box thinker and pusher. And for any undergrads right now that have the opportunity to take a class with him, I definitely would.
That's so great. Really amazing. Yeah, we just have like a few more minutes here, but well, let's just throw this one out there. Like, what would you go back and tell yourself in art and design school? Maybe in some ways we've covered this, but I guess it's another way to revisit that kind of idea of like, what would you go back now and say, oh, I would do this. I would do this differently, or I would try this. Why don't you answer that, Christen? You have 30 seconds. No, I'm just kidding. We could go over a little. That's just totally fine.
God, I mean, just try everything. Like, I regret not being able, I never went to Old Man's Cave. Like, know the community, like adventure, learn, talk to everybody. I know I said it earlier, but that's just one thing that I did try to do. But sometimes you get tired, and I wish I could have never got tired.
Right.
It's
You're sort of advocating for never sleeping.
it's just it's the best experience. It really is. So just don't waste it.
Right. Oh, thank you, Christen. What do you guys want to say about that?
I'm really struggling with this one. Michael,
Yeah.
you have anything?
I would say in addition, like kind of in along like tracking through like Kristen's like try everything. See what things there are to do during the summer. There's something I didn't learn about Aramont until it was this, right before my senior year. A friend of mine did a work study exchange at Aramont. So it's like there are these craft schools throughout the country that I had never heard of. But it's like art camp for adults. Like people pay, $500 plus room and board to go take a class for a week and like stay on this campus. And students can get a trade where you like work for 6 weeks, and then you get, like you work 3 weeks and you get 3 free classes, and like your housing and food paid for. And those can be incredibly valuable opportunities. That's something I really wanted to mention to the folks in the room. Because yeah, like I saw so many people start their careers just by doing this thing at Aramont and hanging out with a bunch of folks and meeting these artists who are just travel the country teaching. And that's another way to like see how people make money outside of like the academic, like collegiate academia, is like the just like education circuits that are in place. And yeah, and then artist residencies. Aramont has a year-long artist residency where you like live on campus and have a free studio, and it's like 10 hours of work a week. But yeah, I feel like the ceramics kids knew about stuff like that, but then yeah, not so much others.
Yeah, that's a really good point, that in certain areas of concentration, like, also that happens a little bit with printmaking. But very much that's the part of the ceramics culture, is like these different places that you go and visit and you trade work for learning and having these experiences. Of course, that increases, all kinds of possibilities, and you can network and meet very cool people.
Yeah.
So I really love that, and that does make me think about, just in general, that I often say to people, undergrads, in the summer, it's like, if you have a choice between like the pizza shop, or the ice cream shop or something, and some kind of art thing, even if it's not intensely glamorous kind of art thing, but if it's somehow related in those arts, that's a really good idea. But Jason, do you want to say any final word about that?
Yeah, I don't know how helpful this is in the context of what I would go back and do, but I do find myself coming back to lament how little I went to the farmers market, and I don't know why that is, and I don't know what that is reflective of, or like how useful that is to an undergrad currently in the program. Apart from to just say that is something where I'm just like, damn, because I was fortunate enough to experience a lot, and I feel fairly fulfilled. But that is the one thing I've come back to, is like, damn, I wish I would have gone there more frequently.
Right. Well, it's such an amazing, excellent farmers market. And then, because of the way you're working with urban gardening and, all of this, I could see why you're like, oh, why didn't I do that more? Because it's true. Anyone on this call, the Athens Farmers Market is a very special one. And that's a really great thing. And it's also what you were saying earlier about, kind of getting out of your bubble. I mean, it's great to be in that sort of laboratory of, the sculpture building, et cetera. But also it's great to go outside, even just locally. And this thing that Christen said about, oh, I never went to Old Man's Cape. I mean, that's such an amazing statement, because what a cool place that is. And it's, what, 45 minutes away, maybe. And so and I think that's also part of life, right? Like, we can't accomplish it all, but it is interesting to reflect back on some of those things that are sort of, there's a poignancy that I sense in the three of you, about this experience that you had when you were here. And I just really appreciate it so much. I appreciate your time this evening, and the way you shared these things that are so deep, and so rich. Um, so, really, thank you so much for that.
I had one thing I actually wanted to add based off of something you mentioned, just
Please,
mentioned, if we have a moment.
yes.
If like when you get out of college and you go and you're trying to figure out your job situation, something that I've just recently kind of realized, but always, I mean, I was hopping around to different things. I guess I'm just trying to say, treat your jobs, even if they're something small and menial, as like a college class. If it's not going to be a long-term job, just try and learn all you can from it and have it be your paid college class on pizza making. Like, how are you going to make pizza better after you leave this job for yourself or for other people? And like, your next job, maybe it's temporary and you're just, landscaping, but what skills can you learn there to move forward to your home, your property, or to your next job? Like, don't diminish any job you have. It's all learning and it's paid. So even if it's not good, it'll drive you to have the confidence to fight for your next paycheck that's better. So
Yeah,
yeah.
that's so excellent. It's really great. Is there anyone in the audience who wanted to say anything else or put anything in the chat? Now is definitely the time. Um, is there something you wanted to say there, Courtney, or I didn't know if you were about to?
I just saw that Jesse's on the call too. Jesse. I don't know if you want to pop in, but another.
Hi.
Hey, what's
Hi,
up?
Jason. Hi, Kristen. Nice to see you guys.
Nice to see you.
I'm very proud of our sculpture class and seeing all these faces again. This is awesome.
Really, really great. Yeah, I love that tonight was this sort of reunion, and you know, and we'll have to do it again sometime. So yeah, again, just thank you so much for your time and your wonderful insights. It's really valuable, and I guess we'll just leave it there and just say good night and be well. And until next time, good luck and thank you so much.
Thank you.
y'all.
This was amazing.
Thanks, y'all. Take
So
good
nice to
care.
see y'all.
Thank you all. It was good to
Bye.
see you. Oh my
You
God.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mateo.